I think the first thing I really wanted to chat with you about is really it's the broadcast for the Rangers going into next year. They're not going to be on Bally anymore, and eventually we'll see what the Rangers have in store for the future. But just kind of what are your thoughts on that situation and really just the ever-changing landscape of sports broadcasting as a whole right now?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it from the time that I started in this business 25 years ago, and it's changed dramatically. And I think we're seeing the digital age really take hold, and there's traditional media and it's shrinking, and then you're seeing, first of all, so many more opportunities in the digital realm than just traditional broadcast media. So I think that's a good thing. It's also a confusing thing for us dinosaurs. But I don't really have much insight on the Rangers specifically, other than they're going on their own, and that's what a lot of teams are doing. And it's a huge chunk of money to make up as far as ad revenue and what they were the amounts they were bringing in from these TV contracts that just frankly don't hardly exist anymore. And so, we'll see what happens. We've got, 4 or 5 months to figure it out from the Rangers perspective. And this has been on their radar for quite some time. And so I'm confident that they've got, a solution in place that will be able to reach more of our fans, which is, the ultimate goal.
What we're experiencing now, it's so much different from the days of no what we it seems like just yesterday what we had with Fox Sports Southwest when we had the Mavs, Stars, Rangers on one channel, and now every team, like you said, is kind of doing their own thing. The Mavs have their own arrangement. The Stars are doing Victory Plus right now, and with streaming and all these other things happening, it's definitely a lot to keep up with, and things have definitely changed in a pretty short amount of time.
Yes, it has, and I think that's kind of part of this business and then life in general. You got to learn to adapt as things continue to evolve and change, and you've either got to figure it out or get out of the way, I guess.
Yes, for sure. And another big changer, or a really big move that someone on the Rangers staff is making, of course, with Will Venable. He's going to be the next manager for the White Sox. He's been an associate manager for the Rangers these past 2 years. I mean, and obviously, this is a huge opportunity for him to really turn around that team from where they were this past year. So, from your perspective, what do you think he brings to the South Side of Chicago next season?
Well, he's super smart, very intelligent, just in general, and then of course in the baseball realm. He's a very calming presence. I think spending 2 seasons with Bruce Bochy would benefit anyone trying to coach any sport, honestly. And so I think the last 2 seasons with Boch has been huge for Will, and he'll be I think a steadying force, within that organization that could really use one right now.
I know that many Rangers fans were hoping that perhaps he would actually take over for Bochy after he retires. So it's definitely a loss for the Rangers. But at the end of the day, I'm happy for Will. He gets this opportunity, and I think it would be really cool if he can get things turned around there in Chicago. So it'll be interesting to watch, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of Rangers fans and those close to the organization kind of thought that was the path as well for him to take over when Boch rides off back into the sunset. But obviously that's no longer the case, which leads to it'll be interesting to see who they end up hiring to fill that position, and where they go from here.
Yeah, yes, it'll definitely be interesting to watch for sure. Now, as we were talking a little bit, beforehand, as of last night, the Dodgers are the new champs, and while the Rangers couldn't defend their championship this postseason, we were still able to look up into the rafters of Globe Life Field this year and see that big World Series champions banner up there. Just, I'm curious, for you, were there any moments this past season when you just reminded yourself that, hey, we won the World Series, we did it, it happened?
Yeah, I mean, probably, opening day is when you kind of take stock of that, because the World Series run was such a whirlwind, and then we had an abbreviated off season for the best reason possible. And, you just kind of, once the guys, got their rings and, you know, I got mine a little bit later, and, you kind of realize that it actually happened. And, no matter what was going to happen last season, obviously it was disappointing. That's something that you can't take away. And so it was really incredible for me to be a part of it. And it was something I enjoyed last season, even though the record wasn't what we wanted it to be. The fact that we were the defending World Series champions, and the fact that we had the All-Star game and Adrian Beltre going into the Hall of Fame. So there was still plenty to look forward to last season.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, definitely some fun moments this past year. One of which I think is really cool is you got to be a part, and because the Rangers played the Athletics in their last game at the Coliseum, and you got to be there for that. I have to ask, what was that experience like?
It was really awesome, and up until 23, my favorite memory when people would ask me that question, what's your favorite memory in your time covering the Rangers, until last season, it was always the clinch in 2010 when we clinched the division, and that was in Oakland. So it's a quirky place. It's but it's the fans there are unbelievable. Really smart and passionate baseball people. It's a shame that they got put in the situation that they did. But to be there on the last day at the Coliseum was pretty cool for me. And like I said, have so many great memories there. And top of that list is that AL West clinch in 2010.
Yeah, yes, for sure, definitely a lot of moments, a lot of memorable times at the Coliseum. Now, I talked with Jared Sandler about this a couple weeks ago, so I'm very interested to hear your side of this story. Game 5 in Phoenix on November 1st last year, when Josh Spore strikes out Ketel Marte to finally get that last strike. You're standing by Jared, and you're also getting ready to do the post-game interviews afterward. There's a lot going on, obviously. What was going through your mind when all of that was occurring?
I think for me, I wanted to, I wanted to hear from our players, get their initial reaction, but I also wanted to remind them that they hadn't suffered through all of this stuff. And while we were, they were overjoyed and all that, and regardless of the history of our franchise, but I remember in talking to Marcus, was the first person I talked to, Marcus Semien, after the game, and I just wanted to convey to him, like, yes, you guys won this for your team and for our fans, but do you realize you just gave a fan base that's, been through some really bad baseball and some really big heartbreak, the ultimate redemption. And I wanted our players to know that it wasn't just about that team and that season, but what they had done for an entire fan base that spans, 50 plus years.
And then the champagne celebration in the clubhouse. You were there as well. You got to hear Bochy's speech, and you even got to take some photos with the trophy, which I'm sure was super awesome. What do you remember most from that?
Yeah, I mean, we got to get in there, the partners, media partners, which is, obviously the Bally's. Camera was in there, and then, Jared and myself. And it was funny because they had, the champagne on ice, and I just remember Aroldis Chapman had been the one that came off the field with the trophy, and he did not know what to do with it. So they were trying to, do the toast and celebrate, and so he looks at me and he's like, basically like, can you please take this trophy? So I take the trophy, and then I went and put it in Boch's office, and there was a couple people from the front office, and we all just like ran into Boch's office and took a quick picture with it. And then they got it out for for the celebration. And there's one of the favorite pictures I took was with the all the champagne and the trophy in the background, and it's just everything was about to go crazy. I took a selfie of just me kind of wide-eyed, and it was a really, really fun experience.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And obviously the moment was very special for you. You grew up a fan. You've been a part of this team for so many years, and you're finally able to experience a championship victory. So in the days following the World Series, what would you say were the biggest things that you reflected on? And this can be memories, people, anything really.
Yeah, I think just like thinking about people who had, been along for this ride for as long as I have, and obviously so many much longer. Just how gratifying it must be for them. People like Tom Grieve, Eric Nadel. I mean, you're talking about people who Chuck Morgan, John Blake, like just people, Tawny Taylor. I could go on and on that have just been. They've been there. They were there long before I got there, and they were a part and have been a part of my experience there. And so just really so happy for those people who had rode this wave for a really long time and finally got to experience what it was like to win a championship.
Absolutely. And I think really that's why, that's a big part of why this championship meant so much to so many people is that our memories with the Rangers, really go hand in hand with friends, family, people we connect with and people we love.
Yeah, it is truly a tie that can bind, and I think that when you're able to achieve the ultimate success, it makes that bond even stronger. And our fan base is very familial, in its roots, and so to be able to share that experience with so many people who felt like they were a part of it was really cool.
Yes, for sure. I want to talk with you a bit about your time at Texas Tech. You graduated from Tech in 98 with a broadcast journalism degree. What were the most important things that you learned during your college days that would help you moving forward in your career?
I mean, I think that's where I learned the value of relationships, and not necessarily in college, but when I moved on to work in Lubbock and cover the sports there, and had head coaches like Mike Leach and Marcia Sharp and Bob Knight and Larry Hayes, and how to develop those relationships and build a level of trust with coaches, players, staff, all that kind of stuff. Just how important that was, not only to me professionally, but also to me personally. And it was something that wasn't really conventional because as a member of the media, you were supposed to be unbiased, which I feel like I was able to maintain that, but that didn't mean that I didn't establish and develop relationships with people and with programs. And that's not something that I was willing to apologize for or change very early on in my career. And I'm glad that I didn't, because it ultimately, I feel like, led me to what I now consider as my dream job.
I think a big part of the reason why we enjoy your reporting so much is is that your connection to the team and the organization. It shines on every broadcast. It shines in every interview you do. You have a very clear connection with this franchise.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that. And it's, to me, that's the highest compliment that I can receive, is that people feel like they know me after all these years on television, and that people feel like they know our players better. And hopefully I have a little bit to do with that. And so that to me is really high praise.
Something I thought that was actually really cool is I was looking at some of the stuff you did in Lubbock, and I saw that of course after graduating, you ended up working for News Channel 11, and eventually you became the sports director there, which is pretty amazing. So how did that come about?
Well, I was actually I was a news reporter for 2 years, and then wanted to get into sports. to make a long story as short as possible, I had an opportunity to get into sports. I applied for a job in Tulsa in their sports department, and I was offered the position. When I told KCBD News Channel 11 that I was going to be taking that position, they told me that I couldn't because I was bound by my contract. So I was really, really, quite frankly, pissed and bitter. And maybe a month or so later, the sports director left and Channel 11. And so they offered me that position. And I accepted it. To be quite frank with you, I was not qualified probably for it. I was 23 years old. I was a woman in the buckle of the Bible Belt. Not that that has anything to do with qualification, but I had followed sports. I was a sports fan, obviously, but I don't think I didn't follow it like it was my job. And so there was a lot of learning on the fly. I made a ton of mistakes, but you learn from those mistakes. I developed some really thick skin because of the things people would say, and it motivated me. So, it seemed crazy at the time, and it was definitely took some lumps and had a big learning curve, but I wouldn't change anything about it.
How important, would you say was that experience for you in your journey going forward?
I mean, I think everything, all of your experiences, whether they're positive or negative, mold you into the person that you are, the ways that you believe, the things that you advocate for, all those kind of things. And so while it was difficult to go through that process that was so scrutinized, ended up being the best thing that could have happened to me as far as just my development, not only as a professional, but as a person as well.
Definitely. What I think is really cool is that you're still very active in the Texas Tech and Lubbock community. I've saw that you've talked with students at the College of Media and Communication before. And of course you were once in their shoes at one point. So how important is it for you to give back to your school, pay it forward, and make those connections, with students who are there now?
West Texas and Lubbock will always be home. And I think it's important that I do continue to give back. And, it's like, just like with something like this, when I reached out early in my career looking to advance or even get started, and I just remember it getting the Heisman from a lot of people and a lot of women. And it really kind of motivated me to say, if someone ever reaches out to me looking for my advice on, this business or my career, or wants, to pick my brain about something, I swore that I would not be that person that ignored it and said no. And so I try to say yes to as many people and as many things as I can to help, because I feel like it's it's the right thing to do. And it was something that I wish that I had more of when I was coming up.
I also saw that you got to speak to the entire Red Raider football team a couple years ago. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was super fun. I just wanted to kind of, speak to the importance of, being a good teammate, working together as a team, and also to give them some tips of how to deal with the media, and then of course social media as well, and how they represent our university and they represent each other. And so that was super fun for me, and such an honor, and I was so grateful that Joey McGuire asked me to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Because when I saw that, I thought that was so awesome. Know that you get to go, that you get to go back to your school and you get to talk with the football team. You got to give a speech. I mean, not everyone gets to do that, so that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome, and I got to bring my son Henry, who was 11 at the time, and he was in heaven. So pretty
Yep.
cool.
Hey, that's awesome. That is great. And I also want to take a moment to just commend you, as well on your work with Do It for Durrett. Of course, this year marks the 10th anniversary of its founding. I have so much respect for what you're doing and what you've done over these past 10 years, and just really how you and the foundation have made such a positive impact. I'm curious, what impact has your work with the foundation over these 10 years had on you personally?
Well, I always say this, like outside of my family, it's the proudest accomplishment of my life. To be able to help, we've raised over $2 million, helped more than 250 families impacted by sudden loss, and so to be able to help people in their most vulnerable time is something that makes me proud. I wish it wasn't necessary, but obviously it is, and it gives you great perspective, especially when you lose someone like Richard at we were basically the same age, and it was a hard thing to go through. But I feel like the strength that his widow Kelly and their children have shown is so admirable, and I just feel so incredibly lucky to have been part of what we've done for the last 10 years.
I believe there's a big 10th anniversary event coming up. Is that correct?
Yes, November 8th is our 10th annual event. It's golf at the Grapevine Golf Club in the morning, and then in the evening we'll have a concert by fellow Red Raider alum Josh Abbott and his band, with a concert at Texas Live. So we are looking forward to a huge event. Our silent auction is, second to none. Our live auction is even better. The silent auction, if you go to 32auctions.com and search Do It for Durrett, you can pull up all of the items that we have up for bid there. So much sports memorabilia, experiences. It really is top notch. And so we're super excited and hope that we can raise as much money as possible for to continue our mission and help more families impacted by sudden loss.
Absolutely, absolutely. My last question for you is this: what is the single biggest piece of advice that you have for aspiring sports journalists?
I would say, there's kind of a balance there, because you want to be aggressive, but you have to be patient. So if patiently aggressive is a thing, or aggressively patient is a thing, that would probably be my biggest piece of advice. I kind of liken the broadcast journalism world, or broadcasting in general, just it's like the minor league system in baseball. You kind of have to work your way up. You don't graduate from high school and start on opening day for the Rangers. You've got to work your way up, and you've got to learn along the way. And are you willing to put in the work that it takes for very little money and with terrible hours and schedules, in order to get to where you ultimately want to go? And I think a lot of times, especially now in this day and age of instant gratification and everybody wanting all the things right now, that's a hard lesson to learn, and it's hard to put into action. But I think that's my biggest piece of advice would be willing to put in the work, be willing to put in the time, and work your way up. Don't expect anything to be handed to you. Take advantage of the breaks that you get, and see where things land.